Hello everyone. I'm so excited this evening to be hosting this event. My name's Dr. Alan Taylor, Associate Professor of Media Production here at De Montfort University. As some of you know, that this month is LGBTQ+ History Month, so I'm very proud to be hosting this event as part of #DMU Pride. You'll notice tonight I'm wearing my Progress Pride badge, which includes the colours of the trans flag. Showing support for all of our trans brothers and sisters out there. I'm really excited because I'm about to interview a personal hero of mine, and it just so happens that in 2019, De Montfort Special Collections was delighted to accept Andrew Logan's archive collection, courtesy of the Cinema and Television History Institute here at De Montfort University. Now, Andrew belongs to a unique school of English eccentrics. One of Britain's principal sculptural artists, he challenges convention, mixes media, and plays with our artistic values. Since its beginnings, Logan's work has depended on the inventive use of whatever was to hand. With flair and fantasy, he has transformed real objects into versions of his artistic world that spawns fauna, flora, planets, and gods. He's the creator of the alternative Miss World pageant, which celebrates its 50th anniversary in 2022 and has hosted queer legends such as Divine, Lee Bowery, and Grayson Perry. So this evening, I'm so pleased and so honored to introduce Andrew Logan. Hi, Andrew. How's it going?
Fine, thank you, Alan. Yes, a little chilly, but we're here in the movie.
Now, Andrew, everyone's dying to know, do you think that I could win Alternative Miss World?
Well, you could give it a go and see what happens.
I could give it a go. Do you know, I do have friends actually who have participated in Alternative Miss World. So I think in 2008, one of my friends, Arkham, participated.
Yes, Arkham. Yes, he did
right
a couple.
now,
I think he did a couple. I think.
Yes, you're right. Yes, he did. So, Arkham, if you're out there, hello. Now, Andrew, we have met very briefly before. You probably don't remember, but it was a very sunny day in London, and it was Angel Tube Station, and there's those massive escalators. And I remember tapping you on the back and going, "Are you Andrew Logan?" And you went, "Yes." And it must have been, I think it might have been 2017 or 2018, because there was an Alternative Miss World. And you asked me if I'd bought tickets, and I said no, because it sold out. But you very kindly posed for a selfie with me outside the tube, for which I was very grateful.
Oh, I'm delighted.
Now, Andrew, you do so many things. You're a jeweler, you're a sculptor, you're a performance artist as well. How do you like to describe yourself? I mean, you know, what do you say to people when they come to your parties and say, "What do you do?"
Well, I describe myself as a sculptor, because actually that embraces everything, from the jewelry through to the bigger events to the sculpture itself. This is just some of my work. You're seeing quite a gamut of it, really. That's Black Icarus, now in Baltimore, the American Museum of Visionary Art. Beautiful piece. This is based on my yoga adventure. It's called The Body of Light. And it has found pieces. This is called the Galactic. Yes, it's Galactic. This is Los Angeles. It's the Universe of Smiles.
Lovely.
This is in Guy's Hospital. I don't know if it's still hanging there, but it was sort of based on the wave, on the tsunami, and also on my Pegasus's wing. It's a huge piece, and the idea is that it went round and round. It's in the was in the entrance to Guy's Hospital. This is my life, birth, and death, because you can't have one without the other, of course. And their miniature pick. Oh, and then we've got some bits of jewelry here. Oh, yes. From
yes.
I did a collection for, who was that? Oh, yes, it was the Indian designer. I've forgotten his name now. He'll come to me. That was in Paris. I love working with designers. It's such fun. Oh, here we are in the Museum of Modern Art in Machynlleth in Wales.
Oh, yes.
My cosmic egg, which I'm sitting in front of now, and it's like a black hole. It just reflects everything around it. As you can see, it sort of reflected the whole room around it.
Amazing. Yeah,
Oh,
a
yeah.
nice casual centerpiece for any living room, I would suspect.
Well, I think you have to move out actually. Too big for the living room.
So, Andrew, you've got a really distinctive style, which is one of the things I love so much about you. I've seen you actually in very kind of smart bow ties and blazers in the 80s. And then there's this amazing kind of neon, North African inspired garb that you wear today. I just wanted to know, how did you kind of come to arrive at such a distinctive look? And how did it become a part of the Andrew Logan brand?
Oh, branding now. Well, actually, Alan, I went to India with Sandra Rhodes
Yes.
in 1982. She took me there, and I fell in love with it. It was like going home. So everything you see I'm wearing, in fact, you're absolutely right, is African. This was bought in Turkey. But my suit, which is a silk suit, I think I've got about 15 of them, all made in India, in a little town called Brindavan, near Delhi. And I've been going to India ever since. I've done my largest works actually are in India. The latest one being the Mumbai airport. It's a 45-foot long installation, and it has 23 portraits, mirror portraits, and it's called the Angels of India. And it's about the people who created it, like Gandhi ji and Tagore and Bollywood stars and things.
It sounds amazing. So you grew up in England through the 40s, 50s, and 60s. I mean, things
I'm still
weren't.
growing up, Alan. I'm still growing up. Probably the 2020s.
Well, let's cut that question. No, but seriously, I mean, back in the 50s per se, homosexuality was still legal. But what was it like for you, kind of growing up, knowing that you contained all of this inner fabulousness? Did you feel that you had to hold back at times, or did you feel that you were always able to express it in some way?
Yeah, I was always able to express it. I was very lucky in that I came from a very loving, large family, and so I just expressed everything I felt, really. And my sexuality came out later on when I sort of went to London, but it was all a very natural process. I was very, very privileged, actually, that I never had any kind of hiccup on the way. I know I was very lucky for that.
Fab. So you studied architecture at Oxford. How do you think that studying architecture informed your sculptural practice?
It teaches you things like structure, and so I can build sculptures and I know how they'll fit together, and the balance as well. And also sociology. It's a fantastic education, and we learned about drawing and toilets as well. So you always think about those high rise, and you think of somebody going to the toilet on the 61st floor. Imagine it whooping down to the bottom. But there was certain series of.
And I can honestly say I've never thought about that until today, and I will be thinking about it after this interview. Part of me wants to ask, what is the mechanics of it?
Well, it's held back in waves as it goes down.
And this informed your sculptural practice.
Yes, it did. It did. I was able to build very large sculptures, and just that sense of material and really kind of knowledge of the world. I mean, I've always loved traveling. That's been a very important. I started going abroad when I was 14 years old, hitchhiking through Europe, and every year I went off, and so this became a really important aspect, because we're all global citizens. We all live on this gorgeous planet, abusing it rather, but we should be looking after it. But to see it is such a miracle. It's just the most wonderful place.
Yeah, I mean, it's always appeared to me that there's a very world feel to your work, and almost like, if you don't mind me saying, a neo-pagan kind of feel to your work,
Sure.
especially in stuff like Black Icarus, for example.
Yes. Well, that, of course, Alan, is, I describe myself as, I'm very spiritual, but not religious.
Mm-hmm.
So what I kind of believe is that the earth is, we're all part of the earth. And the moment I'm doing this sculpture based on stardust, because we are dust, all of us are dust. And so I'm always exploring these things about the world and just what a wonderful place it is. And we are a mere little speck on it, really.
Yeah. Fascinating. So a lot of people will know you, especially for Alternative Miss World. Now, I've tried to encapsulate it. It is celebrating its 50-year anniversary in 2022. And you've described it as a fancy dress contest inspired by Crufts. And in the early 1970s, you had an idea for a party that would not be about beauty. It would be about transformation. The Alternative Miss World would allow anyone to enter, men and women on equal footing, racial parity in a pre-cosmopolitan London, sexuality set free in a million guises. And everyone would be judged on the same criteria as the dogs at Crufts: poise, personality, and originality. So the first one took place in your flat in Hackney. And then since you've had a whole host of elaborate guests and competitors, including Derek Jarman, David Hockney, Zandra Rhodes, Grayson Perry, so many. How would you describe Alternative Miss World to perhaps people who aren't aware of it?
Well, I call it a surreal art event for all-round family entertainment. In a nutshell.
I would love to see some families turning up at Alternative Miss World. I mean, you may well have had some families there. But
we are, Alan, we're all one big family. I mean,
yes,
we are, all of us.
Yes.
So you're seeing quick slides. We're going through it very quickly. Yes.
We might have to double back on some of those, but with things like RuPaul's Drag Race now permeating popular culture, it might seem like something like this, an alternative pageant, is a bit more mainstream. But at the time, it was actually quite daring. So what gave you the idea to do it in 1972? What was your inspiration, and how did it evolve?
I'd always given parties since I think I was 14 or something. I'd always given parties. When I was a student at Oxford, I gave parties all the time. And I just loved giving parties. And I think we just previously, it was in my jigsaw factory in Downham Road in Islington and Hackney. And it was, that whole area had little industrial units attached to houses. Mm-hmm. I had one of those. And I just held a dinner and dance, which was very wonderful. And so we were thinking what to do next. And then I think Miss World was on at that time. But you remember, it was very big in the 70s. Mm. And I'd just been to Crufts Dog Show. And then I said, oh, why don't we do an alternative? And that's how it happened, just sitting around. And that important thing of, as young artists or having that moments together, which I'm sure at the moment has been hell, because that is so important I think for creativity and for just being together and just not even doing anything, but just chatting. It's just, I suppose that's what we're doing now, but it's not quite as casual.
Exactly. What kind of space? Sorry, Andrew.
Oh yes, but the first one really, it just happened. I mean, we didn't have internet, remember, none of that, so it was just on the phone really, and just seeing people. And early 70s in London was a wonderful time because all the fashionable people had gone off to New York with Warhol in the factory and everything. And so we were kind of left alone. So we just had a ball in the 70s, just had a marvelous time. I mean, I think there were only 2 clubs in the whole of London.
Excellent. So give us an idea of like the space that it happened in. Was it small, or was there
about 30? Really, you could talk about the size of a suburban garden.
Okay.
Imagine that cupboard. It had a flat roof. It was made of zinc, so it leaked. So I had many pots and pans all hanging from the ceiling with a series of polythene. So the water dripped down the polythene into all these special containers. And so install this.
My mind is going back to the high rise with the.
Oh yes, we're back to plumbing again.
Plumbing expert.
Yes, plumbing expert. And so it was very impromptu. We had no money, so the catwalk. My brother Richard helped me, and my brother Peter did the music. It was very much a family affair.
Amazing.
I remember some that were not even contestants. I remember it was Keith and Pam and Jim, friends of mine. They came in halfway through the contest and just rushed up the catwalk. Well, there wasn't really a catwalk, it was old boxes. Up the catwalk, and that was it. They'd done it. They'd entered. It was all terribly impromptu, no rehearsals. Everything just, a man called Peter Davis emceed it for me.
Wow.
He was an actor, and so we kind of, and we had little cabarets, and then we had judges. David at that time was in London, David Hockney, so he came along with his friends, and we had a man called Vern Lambert who was extraordinary fashionista man. He went off to Milan, but he was very inspiring and just wonderful people, really, just interesting people. And that was the 72, and the following year, by then, word had got out.
Right. So I was going to ask, what happened? Like 72 ended. What made Alternative Miss World 1973 happen?
Well, we thought we better do it. It was so successful, we better do it the following year. So what we did. And we had all my fashion. I was very interested in fashion at that time. So we had Sandra and Barbara Hulaniki and Ozzie Clark and John Bates, Thea Porter, Molly Parkin. And so we had a wonderful collection of judges. Mm-hmm. And again, my brother Peter did the music, and Richard did the catwalk. And Miss Fran Fulhamwider, who, as Molly described, was wider than she was taller. She fell through the boxes.
Oh my God! Well, that must have been a real moment.
And there were so many people in the studio, you could not move. And I remember David, because Angie Bowyer was one of the judges.
Oh my God! Wow!
David came along, see, to join her, and of course she couldn't get in because people were climbing in the windows. It was impossible. So he just drove away in his Rolls Royce. And but it was marvelous. And my sister Janet was there. She has entered every Alternative Miss World. I think that year she was Miss Oxford East, I think. The first one she was Miss Oxford North. But she's done all 14 of them.
Wow, amazing.
Yes.
Is she competing in the next one?
Well, we hope so.
I hope so too. When did you know that it had become a thing? You know, so 72, 73, then all of a sudden you're having it in like the Hippodrome it was in 1 year, is that right? Or
yes, that was with Matthew Matthew.
But at what point?
He was a club guy of London, and he arranged it. So that was very much club one. It was interesting. It was full of sort of mafia. It was interesting. We never got a program from it because the programs were delivered, and then they were put in a room. And we were at the end of the contest. We were all thrown out within minutes. So I never saw a program of it. So it was extraordinary. But I remember the 1970 back to toilets. The 1975 one was when we had toilets were L sounds, and the whole thing was disaster. That was the time of Towering Inferno, and the 78 one was the toilets overflowed and people were going. It was in a circus tent and it was raining.
Wow!
You couldn't tell if it was the loo or the rain. You see, but everyone had a marvelous time.
It sounds amazing. Well, did you know at the time that it was going to have such longevity that you know it'd be going for 50 years?
Well, I think it's a question of me having longevity, actually, because as long as I'm here, as long as I'm alive, Alan, I hope I can still present the event.
That's amazing.
Perhaps I'll be brought on in a wheelchair or something in the end, or on a stretcher, who knows? But I feel that's what's so interesting about it, because you said about RuPaul, and obviously society has changed in values, but this event has the same format all the way through all those years. And
Yeah.
we've had big ones and small, and I've of course themed it many, many times, because I love a theme. And the theme parties are really good because it really gives people a chance to kind of focus themselves on something.
Yes, yeah. In fact, some of the alternative Miss Worlds have been named after the elements. Is that correct?
Yes, all the elements, Alan, yes. And the last one was psychedelic peace.
Oh, wow. Amazing.
And it was wonderful, yes. I remember my yoga teacher, Angelica, she started the whole event by doing an Om and a minute's silence. Can you imagine the whole of the Globe Theatre was silent for that time? It was magical.
Amazing. So do any kind of past winners or past contestants really stick out in your mind, or any moments that you want to share?
Of course, moments. I have so many moments. And of course, each contestant is really important. We have a winner because I love crownings, and I love crowns and orbs and scepters and all that. I love all the regalia. I love regalia. What goes with it, I'm not so sure, but the actual crowning, so that's very much, it's a ritual. In a way, the old gentleman's world is a ritual. It's something where we come together, irrespective of who you are or how you are, and we share a moment together in time. And I just think it's so important and that's what it really embodies. So, of course, Divine, when he turned up, he had no idea. He had a terrible cold, I remember. And it was wonderful, that wonderful moment when my brother Peter was on the top. He couldn't get the record on the needle on the record, and Divine, and he did an entrance, complete silence. Everyone went completely wild. I remember that marvelously. And Derek, when he won, was him leaping up and down, and Miss Aldershot, who came on with a choir of, I think he had 200, and he came on with the Irish Guards and his and they in fact had left they'd left their barracks unbeknown to the soldiers. So they in fact came later and said, where are all the soldiers? Miss Aldershot had them. They were marching up and down the stage. The stage, by the way, was at Olympia. It was 250 feet long. And my brother Richard, when we were preparing, had a bicycle because it was so big. And we also lost £20,000 that year because it was the time of unions and you couldn't do anything yourself. Everything had to be controlled by the unions. And we had a fun time.
They sound like truly once in a lifetime moments.
They are, Alan. People remember them. Yes, they are once in a lifetime. And we haven't negotiated with Japan and America about doing it abroad and building it up to something. But I think it's such a special event. And you can't put it in any category. It has no category. It is the alternative Miss World.
Yeah, it's interesting because, when you've got things like RuPaul's Drag Race, I'm sorry to use it, but it's just
of course.
A cultural reference.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I remember watching that for the first time and thinking, oh, well, it's just female impersonation. And I thought in Britain, in our kind of performance tradition, we had lots more kind of genderqueer, interesting, alternative stuff happening, and Alternative Miss World was one of those things. It's just way ahead of its time, and I think that the fact that these things are coming to the fore now is proof that it was ahead of its time. But so, what part of the scene that you were involved around was Butler's Wharf, where you had a studio, and it was iconic for many reasons. So Malcolm McLaren and Vivienne Westwood launched the Sex Pistols there, and you've already mentioned, inspired the legendary filmmaker Derek Jarman. So tell us how you set up the studio there and what it was like to be really at the center of one of the most exciting countercultural scenes of the 70s.
Well, Derek and Peter had moved there, and I was allowed to have a space. in A block on the top floor, penthouse, and Bieber sadly had closed. I'd just done a big installation in the garden there, and they were having an auction, and I bought the castle. So I created the alternative Tower of London in this space. So we had a west wing, and then we built a stage, which originally was used for Derek's movie Sebastiani, and we did a court scene there, and it became and I had a gold porter cabin that I lined with gold because it was so cold. There was no heating; it was freezing. So all the parties were kind of, you had to really dance to keep warm.
Amazing.
But it was, at that time, you've got to remember, East London no one went there. It was dangerous.
Yeah. Well, I hate to say this, but still in 2001, I remember I had a friend who lived in Dalston, and I said, why? So even as late as then, it was still, it was a no-go, But
in the 70s, it was wonderful, and very, very happy memories there. So I think there were about 120 artists working there in the end. It was a big enclave for artists. But again, I had parties. I was holding parties not quite every week, but again, because there was not an opportunity to go to many parties of that size, because there was 2,500 square feet. It was big. So you could really fit people in. But and so that the Vivian and the Malcolm was just a natural. I put on operas. We did a dinner and dance where we had all the waitresses were my well-known friends like Janet Street Porter and Sandra and Alan Jones's wife, and they were the waitresses. It was wonderful. We didn't have a kitchen. Everything was served on paper, and my friend Chrissy created a wonderful menu from nothing. I mean, but it was inventive. We had nothing, but it didn't matter because you could just invent everything. And
I mean, I'm actually dying to know how you met Zandra Rhodes, because honestly, whenever I think of you, you're like peas in a pod, really.
Yes, yes, wonderful, Zandra.
So how did you two meet and become friends?
Well, through Dougie, actually, through my friend Dougie Fields.
I was also going to ask you about Dougie, so perfect.
Yes, there we are. Wonderful Dougie, who introduced me, and she then, of course, judged the second alternative Miss World, and then we were friends from then on, really. And,
you've also collaborated as well, haven't you? Because I know that she did some work for the San Diego Opera, and you did as well. Was that at the same time, or two different moments?
Yes, Sandra did the San Diego Opera. She did the Magic Flute, I think, and I made some pieces for it.
Yes, yeah.
She's very kind. She always involves me in the operas and things if it's
I mean, your jewelry does complement her textiles, so it makes sense.
Oh, yes. We're marriage made in Glitterland, I think.
Oh, I would actually love it if you two were real married with real children.
Oh, thank you.
Having lovely neon wrapped babies. But so what were your fondest memories of Butler's Wharf, and when did you realize that the scene was kind of starting to move on? I guess it was more or less there was a fire, wasn't there?
There was, and then that was it. Yeah.
Yeah.
The
go ahead.
Memories of Butler's Wharf, of course, the Queen's must have been Jubilee, 1977. That's when I first met Divine, and Zandra brought in. It was a day party, and remember we all stood we had a little window with a flap. It was called the flap, where you could sit out and look out. And I had a mannequin which I dressed up as a queen, and when they came by on the boat. We got her waving to the Queen, and I think it was Philip who put came out and waved to his wife, and that's when I first met Divine, and he came, and we were friends until his untimely death.
Amazing. How did you encourage him to enter alternative Miss World? Did you ask, or just off of his own back?
No, I think I asked him. I just said I'd never. In fact, I'd never seen him in drag. And I was in my little caravan at the back of the circus tent at the 1978, getting ready for the show. And the door opened and there was Divine. And he liked it. And he said he'd never forget my face when I saw him in his outfit. Very funny.
Now, in fact, at De Montfort, as I mentioned, we've got your archive, which fills, I'm told, over 70 boxes, which chart your artistic career, your exotic travels, and fabulous studio spaces, as well as all that documentation of alternative Miss World, videotapes, photographs, and ephemera. To coincide with tonight's talk, our special collection staff have made an online exhibition on their website showcasing the collection and giving more information about how to access the papers, which are open for everyone to use in their research. Now, one of our De Montfort alumni, Gemma Price, has actually used the archive, and she's been working with it, as well as interviewing people in and around Butler's Wharf to document that explosion of creativity. Hi, Gemma, how are you?
Hello, I'm great, thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, what inspired you to make a documentary about Butler's Wharf in this unique period?
Well, Never Mind the Butler's Wharf is the work of the late and brilliant director, Marcus Campbell Sinclair. Marcus passed away last month after losing his 8-year battle with cancer. This documentary is the last project Marcus worked on before he passed, so I want to make this film in honour of Marcus and pay tribute to his hard work and the continued inspiration he brought to all those around him. Marcus was actually partway through development of the larger feature documentary Andrew Logan's Last Party at the Glass House. And upon talking to Andrew Logan, Marcus was introduced to the story of the group of artists that lived in Butler's Wharf and what happened there with the fire. It's an incredible, really exciting British story with lots of really interesting people attached, most of whom have already been interviewed and expressed so many interesting stories about the fire and the building itself. It's going to be a really good watch. And just here, there's some clips from our Sizzler reel, which feature a lot of famous faces. Got the alternative Miss World. And then 1979, when London started changing and more investors moved into London, there was that devastating fire at Butler's Wharf. The artists that lived there had only minutes to flee before the building and all their belongings perished. The fire was always deemed suspicious, and Marcus and our researcher Andrew managed to get in contact with a journalist from Time Out magazine who wrote an article about Butler's Wharf after the fire. It's really interesting, really captivating story. It needs to be told because it hasn't really been spoke about.
Yeah, really, actually very emotional story behind the making of the documentary and Marcus passing away. What for you has been the most exciting thing about working with the collection and producing part of this documentary?
For me, it's been very exciting to research how the event was covered by the press at the time. There are quite a few articles written about the fire in Time Out, but that is basically about it. We're doing our best to try and find out as much as we can. It's just interesting to hear people's stories about the building, and it's just lovely listening to them reminisce about old times.
And how did your study at DMU, De Montfort, facilitate you being able to do this documentary?
So DMU are holding the archive, so most of our material is there. And I'm working on this film with Rhys Davis, who is a lecturer at De Montfort University. We're doing this together in memory of Marcus. So we're keeping it very sort of low key at the moment, and we're doing it in memory of the great Marcus.
Yes, I'm very pleased to say that Rhys Davis is a member of my team at De Montfort, and I want to thank him very much for this opportunity with Andrew and for the documentary as well. Can you lastly give us some details of the film's release and when we can expect to see the full thing?
Yes, so we're currently in production of the film. A lot of it has already been filmed, including Andrew Logan's interview and a few other people. We're aiming for the film to be about 12 to 15 minutes long, so it will be classed as a short film. But we have so much material on our hands, there may even be plans for a feature film covering Butler's Wharf in the future, by us, of course.
Fantastic. Well done. We'll look forward to seeing the full thing then. Andrew, do you have any kind of spoilers about what you said in the interview? How did you find the process of making the documentary?
So did I?
How did you find the process of being interviewed for the documentary?
Oh, it was lovely, I think. I think we chatted and we had many interviews. Marcus was wonderful. He was always filming and always interviewing. He was passionate about it. I was sorely missed, but he was always, Marcus was always there, and he even interviewed me in Nepal. I think he came out, I was in Nepal, and he was there with his mother.
Amazing.
In the Middle East, and he flew to Nepal to chat to me in the garden in Kathmandu. And he was so dedicated. It was really very moving. I should miss him terribly, actually, but wonderful. But what a legacy he's left. I mean, absolutely. He started filming really. He first met when it was called the Demise of the Glass House, and he started to film really at the end of that period. And just really about the glass house and the people that had, because I always considered it rather like a youth club, where people would come and go, and my studio's always been very open, and he captured this, and from then he's extended and continued, and really, I mean, how much footage you must have, Gemma? I dare to even think of it. I mean, it must be 1,000 hours or something unbelievable.
Yeah, it is about that. It makes me feel excited.
Absolutely wonderful.
It's plenty more material for the archive, I would imagine. We can out. So it's amazing. Thank you so much, Gemma, for telling us about the documentary. It's a really fascinating story, and we'll look forward to seeing it soon. Thanks. So, Andrew, I've talked a lot about your past projects, but I mean, you're still a working artist, so you've got lots of stuff coming up. And I wanted to ask you about what we can expect. I mean, you've mentioned a couple of your projects like India, for example, but people might not even be aware that you have a whole museum of sculpture. So how did you start that, and how has it developed?
Well, thank you. Well, Michael Davis, my partner of now almost 50 years, we used to come up, we had friends that lived in a local town in Montgomery, and we used to visit them in the 70s and 80s. And then I had a dream in the 80s of opening a museum, because my work is full of joy. It's about joy and zest for life. And so I wanted to open somewhere people could come and see it at any time. You have an exhibition, Alan, and people say, I'm so sorry I missed the exhibition, end of 6 weeks or 3 months. But I thought, well, if I open a museum, then they can come all the time. And we found this old squash courts in Berryu, and we bought it very cheaply, because we had no money. And was then able to set it up, and we formed a charity, and now we have trustees, and we're able to, we're 91, so we're coming up now for how many years? 30 years. 30. Oh, Pearl, that's right. Our manager director Anne-Marie Pope is doing a wonderful job, and Michael, he's the trustees, and my sister Janet is the head of the trustees. And so but it's in a very remote part of the world. I mean, we are talking about more sheep than people.
Well, where sorry, go ahead.
I want to bring art out into the country, and my whole idea really is I'd love to have museums all around the world in every continent, so you could sort of go around. But that, of course, wouldn't be very good for the world, would it? Now with travel, we've got to limit ourselves now. Well,
I don't know. I mean, a little bit of Andrew Logan fabulosity in each part of the world sounds amazing to me.
That's wonderful.
I believe you you also hold all of the alternative Miss World crown jewels in the museum as
Alan,
well.
between you and me, I thought even better was to get a liner. Get a ship, a big liner, because then you could travel from continent to continent, and you could have all the parties and all the exhibitions, and spread the world of joy around the world.
And you could be in international waters, so anything goes. Brilliant. So I used to work for a lot of magazines, and I interviewed Sandra Rhodes many years ago when she'd actually just launched a bedspread collection. I don't know if you remember that, but she did a range of I want to say bedwear, but that's not the right term for it. Bed stuff for your bedspreads. Anyway,
she's very good at that.
What's that?
She's very good at bedspreads and beds and.
Yes, no, they were fabulous.
She'll put her mind to anything.
So at the time, I asked her if there was anything that she would like to be remembered for, and at the time, she was making the Fashion and Textile Museum in Bermondsey. But I'm actually going to ask you the same question. What do you think the thing is that you would most like to be remembered for?
Oh.
Oops, that came out of the blue.
Remembered for, oh goodness, Alan, my goodness gracious me. I don't know, I think perhaps just for laughter, really, just to make people smile. I can't think of anything nicer. Just making people smile and feel good about themselves and just good about the world. And
that is such a noble thing to want to be remembered for, to be honest with you. I mean, so it being LGBTQ plus History Month, I think it's interesting to look forward. So is there any advice that you might give to the LGBTQ plus youth of today, or maybe even, aspiring artists who want to achieve something in this day and age?
Yes, believe in your beliefs. If you believe in something, go for it. But respect your humankind as well. Have compassion. Think of your fellow men, and however ambitious you are, always think of fellow human beings and of the world, and just be kind to yourself. And that's it, simply, really. It's a very simple little message. It's nothing.
I think being kind to yourself is one of the biggest lessons you can learn, because I think that generally, and I think that contemporary society promotes this idea of, that one must do things, but we need to be kind and gentle, especially in the midst of this terrible pandemic. Now, I've left some time for questions at the end, but also, if you wanted to, Andrew, you might be able to show us some bits of the museum while we wait for questions and comments to come in, if you were willing. I'm sure everyone's dying to have a look. Do you know, Andrew, if I were you and I had the alternative crown jewels, I'd probably sit around the house in them, drinking a cup of tea, doing the dishes. My crown and scepter.
Here we go, Alan. Now I'm taking you round. There's the cosmic egg. Can you see the cosmic egg?
Yes, it's lovely. Fabulous.
Cosmic egg. And now I'm taking you to the alternative crown jewels. And we've got this is air. You can see air. That's the orb. And this is the crown to the alternative. This is air. This is 1991.
Amazing.
And below it is the water one.
Yes.
That's water, 85.
Great.
And more water below. Well, am I getting it right? I can't see. It's rather difficult, guys.
We can be a little bit. Yes.
This is Earth.
Just fantastic. How long does it take you to make a set of the crown jewels?
Well, I usually start doing the crown jewels about a year before. And then you can see there's different crowns on the surface, on the top there, from different years. Quite nice story about this one. On am I right below? Have I got it? Oh, it can't be really difficult. I'm trying to show you. It's a stork with a hand. Can you see it?
Oh. No, unfortunately, sorry, I don't want you to bend down anymore.
Anyhow, that's got the crown on the top. There, you see, with the cup on it.
Oh, well, wow! Yeah.
The most important part of the coronation is the anointing of the oil, and I used the scepter, which had a bottle of champagne in it, and it was poured into the crown at the moment. That was when Miss Aldershot won, and then she went up in the cherry picker, 40 foot up in the air. And that was when we, in 81, it was 3 o'clock in the morning, because the catwalk was so long, we'd had so many contestants, people were had all gone home. And they turned the music down, switched the heating off, but it was brilliant.
It sounds amazing.
Here we go. 1978 portrait.
Oh, wow.
75 portrait.
Yeah.
Oh, it's... I have to go. And then around here, I'm going to take you round. Oh, yes, 1981. Can you see?
Yeah.
1981.
I'm sure, I don't know how many people know this, but...
I'd just like to see Divine. Look, you can have a bit of Divine. I did a portrait of him before he died. So
amazing.
This is Divine as Elizabeth Taylor, because that was his great...
Yes.
He loved Elizabeth Taylor. And then the other one is Divine as the man.
Oh, wow. Oh, yes, I can see that.
Here's Divine in heaven. When he died, I made a portrait of him in heaven.
That looks...
So pink clouds and a wonderful rainbow.
You know, I have a... Oh my God, I shouldn't say this, because I have a picture of Divine above my toilet.
Oh, no, toilets again.
I know. So I don't know how many people know this out there, but typically for Alternative Miss World, you dress half man, half woman.
Yes, of course. I'm showing you, of course. I come as the host and the hostess.
Yes.
I do 2 jobs in one, you see, of the host and the hostess. Most important.
You've got this lovely...
This is the 1985 water one, which is it's a light up one, as you can see. At that time, it was very popular to have lit up advertisements in airports, and so I kind of followed the trend. Mm-hmm. That's 1986 Earth, Chislehurst Caves. It was supposed to be, and the police stopped it because of AIDS. This one here is air. Have I got air? There's air.
You see it? Yes.
You're sort of getting it. I'm a bit sorry, but never mind. And then I'm sitting on the throne, of course.
Yes.
You couldn't see.
Brilliant. Do you ever try it? Lovely.
And then I'll take you round the cosmic egg. Make you feel giddy.
Cosmic egg.
We're going round the cosmic egg now, yes.
I'm now mentally aspiring to having this cosmic egg in my living room one day.
I'm going to now. There we are.
Fab.
Oh, I got giddy after that.
That was amazing. Thank you so much for that tour. I do want to say very quickly, everybody, we do have time for some questions. So if you do want to ask Andrew some questions, please feel free to post in the chat, and I can direct those to Andrew. But we'll take a look at some of the comments that people are making now, because Andrew, I don't know if you can see them. So
no, I can't see. Oh, I see. Yes, I can.
Fabulous. We've got someone from the Bonington Gallery is really interested in the archive, which is fabulous. I hope you get to use that one day. So Catherine Short, who's a professor here at DMU, I hope you guys get in touch and make a connection. That would be brilliant. We've got Michael Nottingham, who says hello from Berlin, belatedly.
Oh, hello. Hi, Michael.
Amanda Andrews says that she really hopes to visit your museum one day. I mean, it looks amazing. I could probably just spend the whole day like looking at the crown jewels. They look fabulous. Jamie Lindsay says, I loved your museum. I would love to visit it again sometime. So that Jamie's already been.
Oh, well, you're more than welcome when we open. We're hoping to be opening in May, if all goes well.
Yes, fantastic. I think someone has commented, but it's Leslie, about good luck on getting the egg in your front room. One day, I'm determined.
Yes, you'll have to get a very big house.
Brilliant. Britta Forstrom says, always lovely to visit the museum and to see you, Andrew. This was a brilliant time. I absolutely agree. Thank you for joining us, Britta.
Thank you, Britta. Lovely to see you, Britta.
L. Bates has asked a question. Who would you like to do a mirror portrait of?
At the moment, I've just done. I'm doing Daniel Lismore at the moment.
Oh, wow. Amazing.
Yes. He's a friend, and I think he's visually, it's very exciting, and especially in midwinter, there's not all that color and expansion and everything. It's the one I would like to have done, which I did do too from photographs, was Elizabeth Taylor. Her daughter was a sculptress or sculptor, and I was never able to. I knew people that knew her, but I never was able to get to do a portrait of her. But I'd love to. She had 2 sets of eyelashes, which I always thought was fascinating. She was born with 2 sets.
Amazing. Bonington Gallery have actually asked a question talking about the importance of collaboration in your work. So they've said, an important part of your practice is collaboration, which only seems to recently be coming into contemporary art practice and dialogue. Could you talk about importance of collaboration, especially in our contemporary moment? So maybe...
Do you mean now, Alan? Or an important part of it, which only seems recently coming to...
I think maybe they're asking you about your collaborations and how important...
Well, I did, because, yes, I started collaborating very early on. I mean, I was talking about with my brother Richard and my brother Peter, and then I worked with Richard Hartley. We did music together, and Little Nell from the Rocky Horror Show. And then I went on to work with Brian Eno for many years, and then Sandra, of course, and Dougie. I mean,
yes.
And also Lynn Seymour. I mean, I did ballets for the Royal Ballet, and we did quite a few ballets together.
Fantastic. I mean, I always think it's to an artist's benefit to collaborate, because you can end up isolating yourself if you just kind of work in your own artistic bubble. We have a question from Guy Harries. Hi, Guy. Lovely to see you. Fantastic art and interview. Question, have trends changed in alternative Miss World in the competition, visually, artistically, or socially? So have you noticed any trends in the years of alternative Miss World, or perhaps the way in which it's developed?
That's a wonderful question. Yes, because when I'm on stage, for the whole time, and I must say, you get reinterpretations. Mm-hmm. So you get an idea that happened, say, 30 years ago, and it's reinterpreted.
Yes.
But basically, sometimes they have current affairs. You'll have current affairs ones. Mm-hmm. So if we've got a war, you'll have quite a few war ones. No, we don't have any war ones, but and then you will have classic ones as well. And then it's such a combination, it's such a muddle of everything, such a cornucopia. You can't really ever put your finger on it. But I must say, the one thing is, it does. I'll be standing there and something will come out, and I'll think, oh yes, I remember that in 1985. It was a different interpretation, but because obviously you can only transform yourself in so many directions. I mean, but I always loved the James Birch one. I still think about it. It was so silly, but it was evening wear, 1978 circus tent, and he came on as After Eight box of chocolates.
I love it. Yes, amazing.
I make fond memories of that one.
Brilliant. I will expect a whole raft of COVID-19 costumes 2022. We've got a couple more questions. Someone has asked, Susie Green, is music important to your work? And if so, what are you enjoying listening to at the moment? I can't wait to visit your museum soon, she says. So what are you listening to?
You're more than welcome. Music is, I love music. Mind you, I love silence as well. I work with a lot of silence. But the music, I do love music, and I love all sorts of music. A moment I just discovered the greatest hits of Joan Sutherland.
Wow, yep.
And that was sort of marvelous. And then also we had Samba on yesterday. Samba, a very obscure South American group, fabulous. But I love Brian Eno. It would have been one of my...
Who doesn't love Brian Eno? It's amazing.
Some of his music is gorgeous. And then Divine, of course, if you feel jolly.
Brilliant. There's a very controversial question. Do you have a favourite alternative Miss World and which year?
Oh.
That's Lucinda Seeger.
Oh, Lucinda. Yes. Well, thank you, Lucinda. What a question. What was it like? Lucinda was in 1985 Alternative World, and I think I can't remember which other ones did you do? But I remember that one, Miss Continental Cartoon. And she was wonderful, and it was all drawn and cut out, and it was animation come alive. And she was so glamorous. It was absolutely gorgeous. So I do remember that one very fondly, Lucinda.
She's asking if you have a favorite alternative Miss World. I wonder, Lucinda, are you fishing?
She is fishing, but I must say, not really, no, because each one is of that moment and that time, and so you embrace it for what it is. The one thing I will always say, which is why I will always continue with the alternative world, is when I come out on stage and you feel a warmth, like I can't describe it. It's just a wonderful feeling of this warmth. And as long as that happens, I will continue to do it. The moment something else happens, then it will no longer be. But there's such a warmth. Everyone's involved, not just the contestants, the audience. We're all one, and it's such a magical moment. And that happens every time. So, of course, every event is as special as the one before.
Now, I'm going to ask a question from Jamie Lindsay now. If TV bots came knocking with wads of cash and wanted to make Alternative Miss World a TV talent show, how would you feel?
It would be a challenge.
I would take the money.
It would be a challenge. I mean, it would be a challenge because, well, we don't do rehearsals, so there couldn't be any rehearsals, and we don't do any knockouts. So you have to, I suppose, how would you do it? I suppose you'd have to have people on in different cities. You could have around the country, and then it could all be recorded somehow so that everybody is involved at the same time.
I like this. It's like Alternative Miss World for the digital age. I think that's brilliant. And on this theme, and I think we'll finish on this last question because Diane Inglis has asked, has a date been finalized for the next Alternative Miss World? And just following on from that, I wanted to ask you, do you have any plans for Alternative Miss World 2022? And if so, can you give us a teaser?
Well, as you know, the last two were held at the Globe Theatre, which is like a marriage made in heaven.
Yes.
Between Shakespeare and Alternative World. It is what a marriage. I never forget, my sister came as Miss Fuckett in the event. And she came on and her assistant got the audience to scream at the top of their voices, "Fuck it." Well, if you're walking by Shakespeare's Globe at that very moment and heard this chorus, because he was everything that the Alternative World is. It was everything goes. And And as far as regarding the next one, we're hoping the Globe will take us back.
Fab.
It's such a wonderful place. It's such a wonderful venue. And if it would be October, about October time, and 2022. But of course, we don't know, do we, because of COVID and just exactly what the situation is with theatres.
Yeah.
And we'll see. I mean, if it doesn't happen there, perhaps we'll have to socially distance, and we could be in like a football stadium or something.
Wow. I'm really loving your idea of this simultaneous streaming of the event. So that could be a beautiful route. I just want to say to everybody who, if we didn't read out your comment or question, Andrew will have a chance to review them afterwards. So thank you so much for all of your questions and comments. Really enjoyed trying to kind of read and look at Andrew at the same time, but it's wonderful. It just remains for me to thank Andrew so much for such a wonderful and inspirational conversation. It's been such a pleasure talking to you. I mean, as a fan of your work, I think it's even better for me. So thank you so much, Andrew.
Delighted, Alan, and thank you, Gemma, as well, and thank you all at the university. Thank you so much.
And remember, everyone, you can tweet #DMUPride. But thank you so much for attending. It was great to see you all, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.